Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this video. Now, I hope that you've been enjoying your March holidays and some time with your family, and you're finally settling down to get started on some work. And we left off at cells notes number 3, page 2, and we were talking about this question. You remember about I asked you what was the best way to do dishes if you have several people, and you guys told me that a good way would be to divide the job or divide the labor among the 3 different people, right? Get one guy to wash, another guy to soap, and then the last guy to dry. And I introduced you to this idea of specialization, right? Each person specializes on one job, right? One person specializes in washing, the other person specializes in drying, the last person specializes in putting the plates back or something like that. And that's really the best way, it's the most efficient way. Now, it's interesting to relate this to something that happens in our society. Have you ever wondered why there were so many different jobs in our society? Right, just looking at here, you can see so many different kinds of jobs. You got doctors and pilots, soldiers, and there's something similar happening here. Because the idea is we're taking all the different types of jobs and we're dividing the labor among different people. So again, it's this idea of division of labor. And we allow different people to specialize in different tasks. And by doing that, we actually become a lot more efficient as a society. Imagine if one person had to be a doctor or a pilot at the same time. It would just be impossible, right? So instead of doing that, it would be very inefficient and impossible. We split the job among different kinds of people. Now, this idea of the division of labor and specialization also happens in multicellular organisms. In a multicellular organism like yourself, there are many activities and jobs that need to be done, right? We've got to digest food, we've got to move, we've got to transport oxygen, and there's just so much to do. So what the body does is that it divides this labor among different types of cells, and each cell specializes in a certain task, right? So we've got muscle cells helping us to move, blood cells helping to transport oxygen, nerve cells helping to send information around the body, and so on. There's this idea of dividing the labor and having different cells specialize in different things. So here's the important definition. What is the division of labor? Well, it is the breakdown of work into small and specific tasks for efficiency. It is taking that whole lot of things that need to be done and breaking it down into different jobs so that all the jobs can be done more efficiently at the same time. Right? It allows all these different functions to be carried out at the same time and hence more efficiently. Now, the division of labor, this breaking down of work into smaller tasks, it occurs at different levels of an organism. Now, we were talking about the levels of organization, right? There was cell, and then there's tissue, which I don't have here. There's tissue, and then different tissues form the organs, and then organs come together to form a system. Now, if we look at each of these levels, we will be able to find an example of division of labor. So let's start with the cell. Now, if you look at the cell, there is division of labor inside the cell. We will find that the work is divided among different organelles, which each have different functions. So each organelle carries out its function and specializes, and the different organelles carry out their functions at the same time. Now, if we look at the level of an organ, we find that the work is divided among different tissues, which each have different functions. And finally, when you look at the organ system, you find that work is divided among different organs with different functions. So in each case, you see the division of labor. Work is divided. Work is divided. Work is divided. Right? The division of labor is taking place. Now let's look a bit closer at the division of labor that happens in the cell. Now the cell, the whole cell needs to do the work of keeping the cell alive. And this work is divided among different organelles with different functions. So for example, we know that the nucleus is the control center of the cell, right? And we've learned about that. We've learned about these vacuoles which store nutrients. We learn about mitochondria as well, which are not in this diagram, but let me draw one in here. We learn about mitochondria that help to produce energy. We learn about the cell membrane, right, which helps to keep substances in or out and control the movement of substances in and out of the cell. So different organelles are performing different functions, helping to keep the cell alive. There's division of labor there. Now there's also division of labor in an organ. So right now, you've just eaten some food, your stomach's working hard. It's working hard at digestion, right? The work of digestion in your stomach is actually divided among different tissues. And each tissue has a different function. So here in this diagram, you see the different tissues that we can find in the stomach. Right, we've got muscle tissue in the stomach because the stomach needs to contract and churn and mix up all your food. Squish, squish, squish. Then you've got the nervous tissue, the tissue in your stomach that detects the presence of food and sends a signal to your brain that it's time to start digesting. Then we've got, the blood that needs to supply oxygen to your stomach, right? Because your stomach needs to stay alive. And so on, right? Different tissues in the stomach with different functions work together so that the work of digestion can be carried out. And finally, there's division of labor that happens in an organ system. Let's take a look at the circulatory system. It is a system that does the work of transporting substances, right? Like your blood and the substances dissolved in blood. But this work is divided among different organs with different functions. And here you see so many organs. Of course, the main organ in the circulatory system is your heart. And then we've got all the different kinds of blood vessels. Each kind of blood vessel is a kind of organ. Each blood vessel is an organ. So different blood vessels together with the heart work together to transport substances around the body. That's another example of division of labor. So really that's all, and when you do your questions and try out the questions in Cells Worksheet 3, just try to apply this idea of division of labor, of greater efficiency to your answers. Alright? Now I just want to end off by going a bit further for people who are interested to find out more. You probably heard of cancer. You probably heard about cancer cells. Well, what are they? And what does it have to do with this topic on cells? You see, cancer is a situation where cells divide uncontrollably. See, normally cells need to be organized into tissues, right? Once I organize you nicely and everyone falls into line, that's great. But cancer cells divide uncontrollably. They don't remain in the tissue, and some of them even break off and spread to other parts of the body. So something has gone wrong in them. Right? Normally cells would divide in a certain way and stay where they are, but the cancer cells have gone wrong. So this is one area of research that is really growing and that is still growing, that people are trying to find ways to understand how cells divide, how cells grow, how cells specialize for different things, and hence hopefully to find a cure for this problem. Another recent piece of news is this idea of customized organs. And in this case, what's happening is that we're trying to grow an organ. And we can do this by taking a kind of special cell called stem cells. Now, stem cells are cells that have not yet specialized. They haven't taken on a particular function. And hence, if you grow stem cells, they can actually be encouraged or stimulated to become different kinds of cells. So if I have a group of stem cells, I can make them, if I put the right signals onto them, the right chemicals, some of them can become nerve cells, blood cells, liver cells, muscle cells, heart cells. And the idea is you can use this to grow different kinds of organs. So what people have been researching is, how can we take stem cells and what kind of signals do we need to give them to make them become different kinds of cells? So that's a really interesting area of research. You can see that we've already started to engineer some tissues. You see this ear growing on the back of the mouse. Here, this is actually a bladder that has been grown from stem cells. So we are getting there. And there's so much more to find out about cells and what they do and how they're organized and how they come together to form tissue. So, who knows, one of you guys might go on to find out something new about cells. Alright, so that's all. Please do your homework over the holidays. Cells Worksheet 3 is due on the first day of term.